I just want to say, I asked once in high school mythology class, how come we say this is mythology when the people back then thought it was true, but now Christianity is true? How come
Uh,
that's mythology and this isn't? And teacher, I mean, right in front of everybody, he was pissed because it was right in front of the class. He didn't know what to say.
Another one of those kids that questions authority and questions the study. That's no wonder we're all here and not over there.
My question was about, again, something like a Sam Cedar type, just your typical liberal. Usually, if you say to a person like that, well, then the government should just own everything then. It should just own all the buildings, build them all, invent all the drugs and distribute them, because since they know best and nothing will ever fall down if the government does it. But if you say that, they recoil from that and they'll say, oh, no, we don't want that. So, like, why don't they? Like, how come they just don't admit that that would be the logical place to go?
Well, because they're not interested in logic.
Yeah.
And they certainly are not pursuing their principles to the end result. They will say, look, we just look at the world, and what we see is the government serves an important function, and that, if there'd be more government inspectors, that building in Miami probably wouldn't have fallen down. Or if the government had forced the owners of that building to fix it, right? The owners were, of course, the residents in the building. If they'd forced those people to fix it, then the building wouldn't have fallen down. It goes back to that risk question you asked before, right? And we see that, but we also see, we also know this, that governments are not good at building iPhones. They're good at creating all the research that makes the iPhone possible, but they're not good at building iPhones. So there's certain things that markets are good for. And indeed, we are big fans of capitalism, big fans of capitalism. Sam Sater will tell you, Elizabeth Warren tells you, Joe Biden the other day said that he's a big fan of capitalism. In its right place, properly regulated, properly controlled. How much controls? Well, we don't know. We'll figure it out as we go along. But the one thing we cannot have is building falling, people getting drugs and getting side effects, unless they're vaccines. And then it's okay to get side effects because, I don't know, I'm not sure exactly why, but, because the government produced them, or the government decided it's for the common good. So they don't have a coherent ideology. And this is why they're disintegrated, right? It's why Leonard calls them D1s, right? Disintegrated. Their thought is disintegrated, but they're still somewhat oriented towards reality. So they see in reality capitalism actually working. They see in reality markets produce. They see in reality communism failed. And they know they don't want communism because I failed. They're not really egalitarians because they're not haters enough. They haven't reached that level yet of hatred. And yet they know they don't want capitalism because they that's too scary. That's intimidating. So they focus on some mishmash of everything. And as you push them, you'll see less and less and less markets, but they won't go all the way because that's too scary for them as well, because they know markets work in certain realms. But that's most of the left. Leonard's D1 is a reference to Leonard Peikoff's DIM hypothesis, D-I-M hypothesis. D stands for disintegration, I stands for integration, M stands for misintegration. D1, so D is, the D and the M have ones and twos. The two are more consistent application of the idea, and the two are more consistent, the one is less consistent. So for example, in disintegration, a D2 is a complete nihilist. That's what disintegration leads to. Everything is fragmented, but the Ds refer to epistemologically the inability, unwillingness, belief that it's not okay to integrate, to see the one in the many, but only see the many. The M is integration around a wrong principle, like religion. integrate everything around the wrong principle, or communism. And a I is integration around the right principle. It's you should definitely read the dim hypothesis by Leonard. It's excellent. It's deep. It's not an easy read because he gets into epistemology, but the sections of that are part of on history and on the application of the theory are fascinating, interesting, and very accessible. The theory itself is dense, but important. All right.
And to begin with, I wonder if I can ask you to capsulize. I know this is difficult. Can I ask you to capsulize your philosophy? What is Randism?
First of all, I do not call it Randism, and I don't like that name. I call it objectivism.
All right.
Meaning a philosophy based on objective reality. Now let me explain it as briefly as I can. First, my philosophy is based on the concept that reality exists as an objective absolute, that man's mind, reason, is his means of perceiving it, and that man needs a rational morality. I am primarily the creator of a new code of morality which has so far been believed impossible, namely a morality not based on faith.
On faith?
Not on faith, not on arbitrary whim, not on emotion, not on arbitrary edict, mystical or social, but on reason, a morality which can be proved by means of logic, which can be demonstrated to be true and necessary.
All right, all right.
Now, may I define what my morality is?
All right.
Because this is merely an introduction. My morality is based on man's life as a standard of value. And since man's mind is his basic means of survival, I hold that if man wants to live on earth and to live as a human being, he has to hold reason as an absolute, by which I mean that he has to hold reason as his only guide to action, and that he must live by the independent judgment of his own mind, that his highest moral purpose is the achievement of his own happiness, and that he must not force other people, nor accept their right to force him, that each man must live as an end in himself and follow his own rational self-interest.
May I?
All right, before we go on, reminder, please like the show. We've got 163 live listeners right now, 30 likes. That should be at least 100. I figure at least 100 of you actually like the show. Maybe there are like 60 of the Matthews out there who hate it. But at least the people who are liking it, you know, I want to see a thumbs up. There you go. Start liking it. I want to see that go to 100. All it takes is a click of a thing, whether you're looking at this. And you know, the likes matter. It's not an issue of my ego. It's an issue of the algorithm. The more you like something, the more the algorithm likes it. So, you know, and if you don't like the show, give it a thumbs down. Let's see your actual views being reflected in the likes. But if you like it, don't just sit there. Help get the show promoted. Of course, you should also share. And you can support the show at JeronBrookShow.com/support, or on Patreon or Subscribestar or Locals, and show your support for the work, for the value hopefully you're receiving from this. And of course, don't forget, if you're not a subscriber, even if you just come here to troll, or even if you're here like Matthew to defend Marx, then you should subscribe, because that way you'll know when to show up. You'll know what shows are on, when they're on. You'll get notified, right? So, yes, like, share, subscribe, support. Like, share, subscribe, support. There you go. Easy. Do one or all of those, please.